consider a fundamental paradox of modern existence: unprecedented material comfort coexisting with pervasive psychological suffering, anxiety, depression, existential unease. Statistics from global health organizations consistently chart rising rates of mental distress, even in affluent societies. What if the root cause isn't external circumstance, but an internal, fundamental misidentification? Rupert Spira, a prominent teacher in the direct path tradition of non-duality, posits precisely this. He argues compellingly that all suffering, without exception, stems from a deeply ingrained, yet ultimately illusory, belief. The belief that I am a separate, limited self, confined within the boundaries of a body and mind, fundamentally isolated from the world and others. This foundational error, this perceived division, isn't merely a philosophical concept. Spira contends it is the active, moment-by-moment generator of fear, lack, conflict, and sorrow. It manifests in the incessant mental chatter that categorizes experience into me versus not me, mine versus yours, desirable versus undesirable. This constant filtering and judgment, rooted in the defense of a phantom self, creates a reality perceived through the lens of separation. The objective here isn't to merely understand this intellectually, but to investigate its experiential truth. We will explore how this sense of being a distinct entity, constructed from thoughts, memories, and sensations, inadvertently becomes the source code for suffering, and how Spira's direct path offers a method not to improve the separate self, but to see through its very existence. How does this illusion of separation actively create suffering? Spira explains it through the mechanism of resistance and desire. When we believe ourselves to be a fragile, isolated entity, we inherently feel vulnerable. This perceived vulnerability fuels a constant effort to protect and enhance the me. We resist experiences labeled bad or threatening, pain, loss, criticism, because they seem to diminish this self. Conversely, we crave and cling to experiences labeled good, pleasure, success, approval, believing they will complete or validate this self. This dynamic of pushing away the unwanted and grasping for the wanted is the very definition of psychological suffering. Consider grief. The pain isn't merely the absence of a loved one, but the intense feeling that I have lost a part of myself, that my world is diminished. Or anxiety. The fear isn't just about a future event, but the feeling that I am inadequate to handle it, that my integrity is threatened. Spira invites us to see these emotional responses not as inherent properties of the self, but as activities generated by the belief in that self. He uses the metaphor of a wave in the ocean. A wave might perceive itself as separate, rising and falling, fearing its eventual crash. But its true nature is inseparable from the ocean. Its entire existence is the ocean expressing itself momentarily as a wave. Similarly, Spira suggests our thoughts, feelings, and sensations appear within a vast, impersonal awareness. Suffering arises when awareness mistakenly identifies with a transient pattern, a thought like, I am unhappy, believing it defines its entire being. The key insight: suffering is not intrinsically yours, Spira might say. It's a thought appearing in you, the aware presence. Recognizing this distinction is the first step toward liberation. If suffering arises from identifying with a limited self, what then is our true nature? Spira's teaching points directly to consciousness itself. Not consciousness of something, but the fundamental quality of being aware. This isn't a complex philosophical abstraction, but the most intimate, ever-present reality of our experience. Before any thought arises, before any emotion colors our perception, before any sensation is registered, there is simply awareness. It's the silent, unchanging background upon which the entire play of life unfolds. Think of it like the screen in a cinema. Images, sounds, stories, the movie, appear on the screen, capture our attention, evoke emotions, but the screen itself remains untouched, unaffected by the drama playing upon it. Spira suggests that we habitually mistake ourselves for the movie, The shifting thoughts, feelings, roles, and experiences we identify with the character on screen. The direct path invites us to recognize ourselves as the screen itself, the clear, open, allowing space in which all experience happens. This awareness, he emphasizes, is not personal. It doesn't belong to me. It is universal, shared, the common ground of all being. It has no qualities of its own, no shape, size, color, or location, yet it is the source from which all qualities arise and are known. It is inherently peaceful, whole, and complete. The suffering we experience is like turbulence appearing within this vast sky of awareness. The sky itself remains undisturbed. The core revelation Spira offers is this radical shift in identification, away from the transient content of experience, thoughts, feelings, sensations, and towards the underlying, ever-present awareness that knows them. How can we experientially verify this shift from identifying with thoughts to recognizing ourselves as awareness? Spira proposes simple, direct inquiry, not as a mental exercise, but as a turning of attention. One basic approach involves noticing the nature of awareness itself. Close your eyes for a moment. Thoughts may arise, sounds may be heard, bodily sensations may be present. Now, ask yourself inwardly, what is aware of these experiences? Don't look for an answer in thought. Thought is part of the observed experience. Instead, notice the simple fact of knowing, the presence of awareness itself. What is here, right now, before the next thought pops up? Can you find a boundary to this awareness? Does it have a center or an edge? Is it disturbed by the thoughts or sensations that appear within it? This isn't about achieving a special state, but about noticing what is already true, what is constantly present but usually overlooked because our focus is glued to the objects of experience, thoughts, feelings, perceptions, rather than the awareness knowing them. Consider a case study. A man suffering from chronic anxiety, dominated by catastrophic thinking. Through Spira's guidance, he began to simply notice the anxious thoughts and the accompanying physical tightness without trying to change them. He then gently inquired, what is aware of this anxiety? He discovered that the awareness witnessing the anxiety was not itself anxious. It was calm, stable, untouched. This realization didn't necessarily stop the anxious thoughts immediately, but it fundamentally shifted his relationship to them. He recognized, I am not my anxiety. I am the space in which the anxiety is witnessed. This seeing provides immediate relief, not by fixing the problem, but by dissolving the identification with it. Spira's direct path isn't about years of arduous practice, but about immediate recognition. He often distills the process of dealing with challenging feelings or beliefs into straightforward steps, designed to cut through the layers of mental interpretation and bring us back to direct experience. The first step is often simply to pause. When suffering arises, a difficult emotion, a painful thought pattern, the habitual tendency is to react, to resist it, distract from it, analyze it, or try to fix it. Pausing means intentionally stopping this momentum. Instead of leaning away from the discomfort, you simply halt the mental activity about it. This creates a space. Within this space, the invitation is to ask a penetrating question like, what is aware of this feeling? Or, am I this sensation? Or, am I the awareness of it? This question isn't meant to be answered intellectually, but to redirect attention from the object, the feeling, to the subject, the awareness, knowing it. This means turning towards the raw sensation of the suffering, locating it directly in the body without labeling or judging it. Instead of thinking, I am anxious, you drop the storyline and investigate the actual physical manifestation. Perhaps a tightness in the chest, a knot in the stomach, heat in the face. You approach the sensation with curiosity, exploring its texture, its energy, its boundaries, just as pure physical energy, devoid of mental narrative. This step requires courage, because it bypasses the mind's buffering mechanisms and engages directly with the felt reality of the discomfort. The crucial third step in Spira's immediate approach is to merge, or perhaps more accurately, to recognize the inherent non-separation. Having paused the reactivity and directly felt the sensation, the final recognition is that the sensation and the awareness knowing it are not two distinct things. The sensation is appearing within awareness, made of awareness. It's like understanding that a wave is not separate from the ocean. The wave is water. Similarly, the tightness in the chest is awareness manifesting temporarily as that specific sensation. There isn't awareness and tightness. There is only awareness taking the form of tightness. By resting in this understanding, the sense of division dissolves. The sensation is no longer perceived as an alien intruder happening to a separate me. It's seen as a modulation of the very field of awareness that you are. This doesn't necessarily make the sensation vanish instantly, but it removes the resistance to it, which is the core component of suffering. The energy is allowed to be, and often, without the fuel of resistance and identification, it naturally dissipates, like a cloud dissolving into the sky. Consider a CEO feeling overwhelmed by immense pressure. Instead of fighting the feeling or blaming external factors, they pause. They locate the feeling, perhaps a crushing weight in the shoulders. They feel it directly, without the story of, "I can't handle this." Then, they recognize that this feeling of pressure is appearing in the aware space that they fundamentally are. The insight dawns. The pressure is known by me, experienced in me, but I, the awareness, am not constituted by it. This allows them to meet the demands of their role from a place of underlying stability rather than being consumed by the stress. A crucial warning Spira often gives: avoid turning this into another intellectual exercise. The mind loves concepts, even concepts about non-duality. This path is about direct experience, feeling into the reality of awareness and sensation, not just thinking about it. Central to the illusion of the separate self is the concept of the ego. In Spira's framework, the ego isn't a tangible entity, but a persistent activity of the mind, the process of constructing and defending a psychological identity. This identity is woven from a collection of thoughts, beliefs, memories, roles, and labels we attach to ourselves. I am a doctor. I am anxious. I am spiritual. I am a failure. I am successful. I'm not good enough. These are stories the mind tells itself, creating a character, a protagonist in the narrative of my life. Suffering often arises directly from our rigid identification with these egoic labels. When experience contradicts our cherished self-image, a successful person faces failure, the ego feels threatened, triggering pain, shame, or anger. Freedom, Spira teaches, comes not from building a better ego, but from recognizing the fundamentally constructed and transient nature of all such identities. He might suggest an exercise. Take a piece of paper and write down 10 I am statements that feel true for you. Include roles, personality traits, deeply held beliefs about yourself. Once you have your list, investigate each statement. Ask yourself, is this identity truly who I am fundamentally? Or is it a thought, a feeling, a role I play, a story I believe? Was I this identity 10 years ago? Will I be this identity in 10 years, or after my body dies? Is this identity present when I am in deep sleep? The inquiry reveals that these identities are concepts, mental objects appearing in awareness. Awareness itself remains prior to and independent of any label it assumes. Consider the example of a recovering addict. The label addict can be useful for seeking help, but clinging to it as a core identity can perpetuate suffering and limit potential. Real freedom dawns when they recognize the thoughts, cravings, and history associated with addiction appear within me, but I am the awareness that knows this story. I am not defined by the label addict. This doesn't negate the past experiences, but it reframes them as events witnessed by awareness rather than the defining essence of who they are. The ego, like a shadow, seems real only when we invest belief in it, turn the light of awareness onto it, and its lack of inherent substance is revealed. Recognizing your true nature as awareness isn't meant to be a peak experience reserved for meditation cushions, nor does it mean detaching from life. Spira emphasizes embodied freedom, living this understanding in the midst of everyday activities. Enlightenment isn't about escaping the world, but about meeting it fully without the filter of the separate self. How is this practiced? It's about consciously feeling your being in the world. When washing dishes, don't just think about the task. Feel the warmth of the water, the texture of the soap, the presence of your hands as expressions of the underlying aliveness of awareness itself. The body, often perceived as a limitation or the boundary of the self, becomes a portal to presence when experienced directly, not as my body, but as this field of sensation appearing in awareness. When interacting with others, listen not just to their words, but feel the shared space of awareness in which the interaction unfolds. When challenging emotions like frustration arise, instead of getting lost in the story, ask, can I feel my true nature, the background of peace, even through this feeling? This doesn't suppress the feeling, but allows it to be experienced within a larger context, preventing it from defining your entire state. Simultaneously, Spira warns against the trap of seeking. The mind, conditioned to strive and achieve, often turns enlightenment into another goal to be attained in the future. Through specific practices or accumulations of knowledge, this very seeking reinforces the sense of lack and separation it aims to overcome. You are already that which you seek is a core tenet. Peace, happiness, freedom are not outcomes of a process, they are the nature of awareness itself, temporarily veiled by identification with limitation. A student might meditate for decades trying to find peace, only to have the sudden realization, peace was never absent, it was the silence behind my striving. I was peace all along, simply preoccupied with the search. Spira's path is direct because it points to this ever-present reality. He cautions against spiritual materialism, collecting experiences, teachers, or enlightenment packages. Pathless packages. Truth, being what you already are, cannot be bought or acquired. The invitation is to stop looking for what's doing the looking. What does life look like after this fundamental shift in identity, after the recognition of oneself as awareness? Spira clarifies that it's not about entering a permanent state of bliss or immunity to life's challenges. Difficulties still arise, illness, loss, practical problems. However, their impact fundamentally changes. They are no longer perceived as happening to a vulnerable, separate me. Instead, they are experienced as events unfolding within the vast, impersonal field of awareness. The suffering component, the resistance, the story of "this shouldn't be happening to me," dissolves. A cancer patient, embodying this understanding, might share, "The physical pain is intensely present. The diagnosis is factually difficult. But the I who is suffering, the sense of being a victim defined by the illness, is absent. Underneath the physical sensations and the practical concerns, there's a quiet awareness, an okayness, that remains untouched. Life continues, perhaps with even greater richness and appreciation, but the psychological drama centered around the ego diminishes. It's like being deeply engrossed in a compelling play, feeling the emotions of the characters, while simultaneously knowing you are the audience. The space in which the play, you engage fully, act appropriately, respond effectively, but you never entirely lose yourself in the role or mistake the stage drama for ultimate reality. Spira suggests that experiences of suffering, when they do arise, serve as potent reminders, signposts indicating where identification with the limited self has crept back in. They become invitations to return attention to the background of awareness, to the peace that is always already present. Suffering, he might conclude, is simply the reminder that you've momentarily forgotten your true self. Let its discomfort guide you back home. The direct path isn't about achieving a distant goal or fixing a broken self. It's the ongoing recognition that you were never broken, never truly separate. Freedom isn't earned, it's discovered in the immediate, undeniable reality of your own being as pure awareness. The door is not locked, it stands open here and now.